You see it in families, in companies, in armies. The moment people stop caring is the moment the structure collapses. They'll show up, they'll nod, they'll follow orders, but the spirit is gone. They won't fight for you, they won't bleed for you. They'll just wait for the end, or for someone else to take charge. And you'll wonder what happened. You'll think they betrayed you, but in reality they just stopped seeing you as worth believing in. Indifference kills faster than open revolt because it robs you of momentum, of morale, of the fire that every great vision needs, and it always starts the same way, with silence, with disengagement, with the sense that nothing really matters anymore. If that's what you're seeing, don't ignore it. It's a fire that won't announce itself until it's burned everything to the ground. Let's talk now about one of the most misunderstood forms of weakness: hesitation. In moments of crisis or decision, hesitation is a killer. Machiavelli understood this deeply. A leader who hesitates loses more than just time. They lose respect, momentum, and often their position. Because power rewards decisiveness, even when the decision is imperfect. People want to follow someone who acts, not someone who weighs every option endlessly, paralyzed by fear or doubt. Hesitation breeds confusion. It signals uncertainty, and uncertainty spreads like wildfire among followers. When the leader is unsure, everyone else becomes unsure, and that's how opportunities slip away. Remember, no leader is perfect. Mistakes will happen, but mistakes made swiftly and owned immediately are forgiven. Hesitation, on the other hand, erodes confidence, because in hesitation, there is indecision, and in indecision, there is weakness. There are certain mistakes in the world of power that don't show up in any law book. You won't find them written in constitutions, and they're definitely not part of the carefully crafted speeches about ethics and justice. These aren't loud mistakes. No headlines, no swords drawn. All it takes is quiet tolerance. Just one moment of letting something slide. That one time you ignore a small breach of trust, that second you stay silent instead of speaking up, right then, you start writing your own downfall. This isn't for those chasing comfort. This isn't for daydreamers who want life to be smooth. This is the hard truth, the kind that wrecks empires, collapses companies, and rots leaders from within. Because power doesn't explode overnight, it wears away, quietly, in pieces. Betrayal, greed, people who smile at you in public but dig your grave in the dark. And if you don't see it, or worse, if you see it and do nothing, then you won't be taken down by the enemy you fear. It'll be the people right next to you who undo you. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the 7 behaviors you should never, ever allow. These are the 7 quiet poisons that can take down your throne, your reputation, or your credibility. If you lead, even just your own life, or if people look to you for direction, you need to stay with me until the end. And if any of this hits close to home, if it strikes a truth you've been avoiding, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a wake-up call. Because sometimes staying alive in this game isn't about how tough you are. It's about how clearly you see what can never be forgiven. Let's start with loyalty. People say loyalty is something that reveals itself over time. But Machiavelli had a deeper insight. He didn't measure loyalty in years. He measured it in crisis. See, when life is easy, when the skies are blue and the money's good, anyone can pretend to be loyal. Everyone can make big promises, act noble, and look the part. But when the storm hits, when the ground shakes, when everything starts to fall apart, that's when the truth shows up. You've seen it. The ones who show up to your wins, raise their glass at your parties, cheer for you like they take a bullet until things go sideways. Then, vanished. No call, no message, just radio silence. And that silence screams louder than any betrayal. Even worse is when you bounce back. You rise from the ashes, and suddenly they come back with excuses. I didn't know what to say. I had stuff going on. I was going to check in, but don't buy it. That silence during your worst moment? That was their answer. And if someone can vanish once, they'll vanish again. Every time you forgive betrayal just to avoid conflict, you send a message to everyone else. Betrayal has no price. And from that point forward, Loyalty around you stops being real. It becomes conditional, based on whether you're still worth attaching to. People won't stand by you because they respect you. They'll calculate you like a stock. Rise and they cheer, fall and they sell. That's not leadership. That's vulnerability dressed as power. You don't need an army. You need one person who stands by you when everything's burning down. That kind of loyalty? Priceless. 100 fair weather friends aren't worth one ride or die when the storm hits. Machiavelli made this crystal clear. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it's a crack in your power base. Because once your followers see that you were abandoned and did nothing, they stop seeing you as unbreakable. From that moment, your leadership isn't secure. It's a title waiting to be taken. And here's the cold truth. No one stays loyal to a leader left alone. The one who ghosts you in crisis will be the first to stab you in recovery. They'll still wear your colors, still show up to the meetings, still say, boss. But when it matters most, they disappear. You might want to give them the benefit of the doubt. They probably had a reason. But Machiavelli would have stared you down and said, absence is a message. It doesn't need an explanation. It's a choice. And choices speak volumes. So next time you fall and they're nowhere to be found, don't chase reasons. Remember faces. And if you survive, if you make it through the storm, don't ever put those faces back where they once stood. Because every time you welcome them back, you set a new rule. Loyalty is optional. Just disappear when things go bad and reappear when they're good again. That's not how empires are built. That's how they rot from within. Now let's talk about a far bigger danger than ruthless enemies. A coward on the throne. You might think conspiracies and traitors are what destroy leaders, but Machiavelli knew the truth. Nothing crashes a kingdom faster than a man in charge who's scared of his own power. Cowardice doesn't always look like fear. It often wears a mask. It hides behind fake morality, behind words like, let's take more time, or we need to be cautious. But at its core, it's just fear dressed in strategy. It's indecision when the moment demands boldness. A leader like that doesn't just lose respect. He infects the entire chain of command. When the top guy hesitates, when every call is passed down the line, when no one takes responsibility, everyone else feels it. And trust? Gone. Imagine you're in battle. Things are going south. You turn to your commander, and he's hesitating, not sure, waiting for a sign. That's not leadership. That's how people start planning their exit strategies. That's how morale collapses. That's how kingdoms fall, without a single sword drawn. Machiavelli nailed it. Hesitation at the top is a knife to the heart of your system. Armies don't fear enemies. They fear indecisive commanders. Leadership isn't about perfect timing. It's about stepping forward when nothing is certain. No one can predict the outcome, but strength is choosing to act anyway, especially when it matters, especially when all eyes are on you. That's the moment that defines a true leader. He doesn't wait for certainty. He acts and makes certainty follow. Some leaders hide behind words like peace or moderation to mask their fear. But look deeper. They're not scared of doing the wrong thing. They're scared of doing the right thing because it's hard. They don't need more time. They just don't want to carry the weight of real decision-making. A real leader doesn't bury himself in endless meetings, doesn't defer every choice to a committee. He knows power doesn't belong to the one who's cautious. It belongs to the one who's bold enough to act, even in doubt. That's what keeps the system alive in a world that never stops shifting. So if you want to hold your ground, if you want their respect, you have to move first, explain later. And most of all, never confuse fear with calm. People might respect a ruthless leader, but they despise one who's too scared to lead. You see, one of the most silent killers of any empire, any relationship, any institution, is not rage or betrayal or even failure. It's inconsistency. It doesn't scream. It doesn't show up in a dramatic way. It shows up quietly. One rule for some, another for others. One standard today, a different one tomorrow. And before you realize it, no one trusts your judgment anymore. People can forgive a harsh rule. They can accept discipline even when it's tough. But what they won't accept, what kills loyalty, is unpredictability. When followers don't know what you'll tolerate next. When justice feels like a dice roll instead of a code. That's when order starts to collapse. Because power at its core isn't just about command. It's about consistency. When you let one person break a rule because they're close to you, others see it. When someone else is punished harshly for a small mistake, they remember. People don't follow power blindly. They follow fairness. And if fairness is absent, loyalty fades fast. You might think you're being strategic, protecting your own, bending the rules just this once. But you're teaching everyone around you a dangerous lesson. The rules don't matter. Machiavelli knew this too. He understood that partial justice is no justice at all. It doesn't matter what you say. It matters what you enforce. And when you bend once, people stop respecting the law. They start watching for loopholes. They stop believing in what you stand for. And that's when the system starts to decay. Not from outside pressure, but from internal erosion. You'll see it first in hesitation. People slow down. They stop going the extra mile. They start doing just enough to get by. They start whispering, second-guessing, testing you. Because deep down, they've stopped believing you'll hold the line. And once that faith is gone, the whole structure begins to crumble. Never forget, a leader who doesn't enforce their own rules is a joke in slow motion. Everyone laughs politely to your face, but behind your back, they're already planning their next move. Because if the rules don't protect everyone, they don't protect anyone, not even you. Now let's talk about a behavior that doesn't always look dangerous, but is poison, slow and subtle. Excuses. We've all heard them. It's not my fault. I was just following orders. I didn't have the tools I needed. And on the surface, these can sound reasonable. But over time, excuses become culture, and culture shapes destiny. If people around you are allowed to deflect blame, avoid ownership, or explain away failure, guess what? You're no longer leading a team. You're babysitting a group of people allergic to accountability. And in the long run, that is fatal. Machiavelli warned, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But what he meant was, respect must come before comfort. A good leader doesn't punish every mistake, but he never tolerates a pattern of excuses, because once people know they can get away with it, they will. And it spreads. Fast. One person dodges blame. Another follows. Soon, no one is responsible, and the next time something critical fails, everyone points fingers instead of stepping up. No one wants to be at fault, and without accountability, nothing gets done. And what does get done is done poorly. Excuses are how people avoid growth. They're how mediocrity survives. And if you accept them, you become the shield for every weakness beneath you. It's a trap. Because in trying to be understanding, you end up lowering the standards for everyone. You'll find yourself constantly repeating instructions, cleaning up messes that should have been prevented, and slowly becoming the person everyone leans on. Not because they respect you, but because they know you'll tolerate what no true leader should. Real power demands ownership, and if someone around you can't say, I failed, they don't belong near the top. The most dangerous person in your circle is not the one who makes a mistake. It's the one who never owns it, because that person will always find someone else to blame, and eventually that someone will be you. Which brings us to something even darker. Resentment. It's not loud. It doesn't yell or fight. It simmers, quietly, behind smiles, under polite conversations. Resentment in your team, your circle, your kingdom, is a ticking time bomb. Because once someone feels like they've been treated unfairly, and that feeling goes unspoken, they don't forget. They carry it. You'll see it in small ways. A missed deadline here, a snide comment there, less enthusiasm, more friction, and then one day when you need them most, they disappear, or worse, they sabotage. Machiavelli saw this too. Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. People can live with a lot, but they cannot live with the feeling that they've been wronged, especially when that wrong is left unaddressed. You may have followers who never voice their frustration, but silence does not mean peace. It often means suppressed rebellion. You think you're keeping things calm, but under the surface, a storm is building. You want to protect your power? Then confront resentment early. Talk to people. Address tensions. Don't avoid discomfort. Because resentment is patient. It will wait for the perfect moment, the weakest moment, to strike. And the ones who feel wrong the longest, they'll be the most ruthless when they finally act. Not because they're evil, but because they believe they were justified. And justified anger in a loyal man can be far more dangerous than betrayal from a known enemy. So ask yourself, who around you has gone quiet lately? Who no longer brings ideas? Who avoids eye contact? Don't ignore them. That's where your next crisis might be brewing. Now let's take this even further. There's a behavior more corrosive than betrayal, cowardice, or flattery. It's indifference, the slow rot of people who simply don't care anymore. They don't hate you, they don't fight you, they just go through the motions. They've disconnected, and that's lethal, because at least with betrayal, there's passion. With indifference, there's nothing. Machiavelli said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. If you're surrounded by indifferent people, it's not a reflection of them. It's a reflection of you. Somewhere along the line, they stop believing in the mission, in the vision, in your ability to lead. And when belief dies, everything else follows." That's why Machiavelli advised rulers to appear bold and decisive, even if they must mask uncertainty. The appearance of strength is often more important than strength itself, because people rally around certainty, not doubt. If you hesitate, you hand your power away, not because you lack the ability, but because you lost the narrative. And this leads us to another silent destroyer, the loss of vision. A leader without vision is like a ship without a compass. People follow vision. They follow a clear goal, a clear mission. When that vision fades or becomes muddled, so does loyalty. People start looking elsewhere, for direction, for purpose, for meaning. Vision isn't just a slogan or a mission statement. It's the reason people get out of bed. It's the promise of something better. Without it, your power is just authority, and authority alone can never sustain long-term loyalty. You must constantly renew your vision. Speak it clearly. Live it visibly. Make it real every day. Because when people believe in the vision, they forgive your flaws. They tolerate your mistakes. They fight for you even when things get tough. Finally, let's talk about something that Machiavelli only touched on indirectly: the importance of adaptability. Power isn't static. The world changes, people change, circumstances change. A leader who clings rigidly to old ways, old rules, old methods will be left behind. Adaptability means knowing when to hold firm and when to bend, when to listen and when to command, when to act boldly and when to wait. It means being ruthless with your principles, but flexible with your tactics. The greatest leaders in history weren't just strong, they were smart. They read the times and shifted their strategies accordingly. They knew that power is like water. It flows into the shape you give it. If you try to force it into a mold that no longer fits, it breaks free. So to survive and thrive, you must cultivate adaptability. But remember, adaptability is not inconsistency. It is deliberate, strategic change, rooted in clarity and purpose. Without that, it becomes confusion and weakness. In summary, Machiavelli's insights teach us that the silent killers of power are many: inconsistency, excuses, resentment, indifference, hesitation, loss of vision, and inflexibility. But these are all things we can see, we can fight if we are vigilant. The question is, are you paying attention? Are you willing to confront the hard truths? Because power, real power, doesn't come to those who avoid conflict or hide from discomfort. It comes to those who face these silent killers head on and rule with clarity, consistency, and conviction. That's the lesson. And it's as true today as it was in Machiavelli's time.